Liam Carter had always preferred quiet over conflict. After years of grinding through the tech world and finally cashing out of a startup, he used a chunk of his savings to buy a beautiful home at the edge of Willow Creek Estates, an upscale, gated community known for its scenic walking paths, over-manicured lawns, and pristine lake. That lake, glistening just behind his backyard fence, had sealed the deal the moment he toured the property. Fishing had always been his escape. Early mornings with a cup of coffee, his line cast gently into the water, and the soft sound of birdsong were all he needed to feel at peace. He wasn't disturbing anyone. He wasn't being loud. He was just living until the letter came. Folded in a cheap HOA envelope, was printed in all caps. Violation notice. Unauthorized use of common area fine. $500. The infraction. Fishing in HOA-regulated waters without prior approval. Liam blinked. Was this a joke? He had lived in the neighborhood for barely 3 weeks. No one had mentioned anything about fishing permits. In fact, when his realtor sold him on the home, she specifically bragged about lake access and quiet lakeside enjoyment. He figured the HOA would be sticklers about trash cans or lawn lengths, not peaceful fishing on a Tuesday morning. He called the number on the notice and was put on hold for 10 minutes before being transferred to Marla Griggs, the president of the Willow Creek HOA. "You can't just fish in the lake," she snapped coldly after he politely questioned the fine. "It's for aesthetics, not sport." "Aesthetics," Liam repeated. "I wasn't throwing a rave. I was using a barbless hook and sitting quietly. That lake is under HOA jurisdiction. There are guidelines. There are rules," she said curtly. "Perhaps you didn't read the handbook." Liam had read it, nor did it mention anything about banning fishing. When he said so, Marla simply replied, "Well, it's understood. Consider this a warning." It wasn't just the fine, it was the tone. The assumption that she could dictate how he enjoyed his own backyard. That he was beneath her authority, regardless of logic or fairness. He hung up the phone, frustrated and a little amused. "All this over a fishing rod?" he muttered. But deep down, something told him this wasn't over. Liam had never imagined that fishing as quiet as hobby could spark a full-blown feud. But after the first fine and Marla Griggs' dismissive phone call, things only escalated. Within a week, another envelope arrived. Second notice, continued unauthorized USE fine. $750 attached was a blurry photo of Liam sitting in a lawn chair near the lake, rod in hand. The photo had clearly been taken from a distance, likely by one of the board members or a nosy neighbor. This time, the notice included a threat. Continued violations could result in legal action and possible liens on his property. Liam chuckled in disbelief. It wasn't harming the lake. It wasn't polluting, disturbing wildlife, or trespassing on anyone else's yard. Still, the HOA was determined to make an example out of him, so he decided to attend the next board meeting. Face-to-face held in the clubhouse every third Thursday. The HOA meetings were known more for passive-aggressive power plays than productive discussion. Liam arrived early, wearing jeans and a fishing-themed t-shirt, and brought printed copies of the HOA handbook. With the lake section highlighted no mention of a fishing ban, Marla didn't even look at it. The board has agreed to interpret. "Lake use is passive enjoyment only, no swimming, no boating, no fishing," she said coolly. "It's about preserving community standards." Liam raised an eyebrow. "So you just make up rules after the fact?" A few neighbors shuffled in their seats. One man whispered, "He's got a point," before being silenced by a glare from Marla. She leaned forward. "This isn't about you, Mr. Carter. It's about the good of the community. If everyone started fishing, what would happen to the tranquility of the lake?" Liam replied dryly, "Sounds like you're afraid of a fish shortage." A few attendees laughed. Marla didn't. After the meeting, an HOA board member cornered Liam and advised him to let it go before things got messier. That night, Liam received an email from the HOA shaming him for disrupting the meeting and disrespecting the board. The fine was increased again. That's when Liam snapped, not with rage, but with clarity. He opened his laptop, pulled up the county's property records, started researching the lake's ownership, and what he found was delicious. Liam wasn't a lawyer, but he had one thing most people didn't: time, patience, and a deep understanding of how to dig through data. His years in software engineering had taught him how to look deeper into systems, into code, and now into land deeds. He pulled up the county assessor's website and entered his address. Then he located the lake. To his surprise, the large, shimmering body of water at the heart of Willow Creek Estates wasn't labeled as community property at all. It was marked privately held. More digging revealed that decades ago, during the development of the neighborhood, the original builder had failed to turn over ownership of the lake to the HOA instead. It was sold quietly to a real estate investment group that had held it ever since. There had been no updates, no maintenance. No use, just a forgotten parcel of water the HOA had been assuming they controlled. Even better, a public listing showed that the group had recently marked the lake and its surrounding buffer zone for sale. A quiet, off-market listing that hadn't gained any attention yet. Liam's pulse quickened. The asking price wasn't outrageous, especially for someone who'd made a decent amount from his startup exit. It was an investment, but also the ultimate play. He ran the numbers, talked to a lawyer, set up an LLC. He didn't tell anyone, not even the neighbor who had whispered good luck after the last HOA meeting. Within 3 weeks, the deal was done. Liam Carter was now the legal owner of Willow Creek Lake. The transfer came with legal documents, property lines, and a deed that gave him rights to the entire shoreline buffer, plus the water itself. It didn't give him control over the HOA, but it did give him something far better: control of what happened on the lake. He didn't make a scene, no announcement, no show. Instead, he quietly installed several signs around the lake, wooden, rustic, yet impossible to miss. Private property, no trespassing, fishing by owner-only trespassers will be PROSECUTUT, and just like that, the tables turned. The very HOA that fined him for casting a fishing line now couldn't so much as touch the water without his permission. Revenge, it turned out, was best served lakeside by the time the HOA realized what had happened. It was already too late. Residents began noticing the new signs posted around the lake. They weren't the usual HOA-approved plastic placards. They were professional, permanent-looking, and featured Liam's LLC name at the bottom. Some thought it was a prank. Others assumed the HOA had finally cracked down harder. But when a family tried to host a child's birthday party by the lake and were politely asked to leave by a hired private security guard, the panic began. Marla Griggs called an emergency HOA meeting. This time the clubhouse was packed. We're investigating the legality of these so-called private property signs, Marla announced, visibly irritated. There's no way someone just bought the lake. Liam sat in the back, sipping coffee with a smile. When questioned, he stood and calmly presented a certified copy of the property deed, bearing his name, company, and ownership stamp. Gasps rippled through the room. I didn't break any laws, Liam said. The HOA never owned the lake. You just assumed you did. One board member whispered, Is that even possible? It's more than possible, Liam replied. It's done. The chaos began almost immediately. Hosted events by the lake were canceled. The annual canoe race, the summer picnic, even the 4th of July fireworks display. All lake-based activities were now officially off-limits without permission, and no one had it. Liam hired a small maintenance team to clean and care for the lake. He began fishing again, peacefully, alone, without interference. People walked by in disbelief as they saw him relaxing lakeside, while their own access had been revoked. Marla tried to rally the board to fight back legally, but every attorney they consulted said the same thing. He owns it, fair and square. The HOA had no claim. A newsletter went out from Marla's desk, full of frustration, due to recent property changes beyond our control. Lake access has been temporarily restricted. We are working toward a solution. The solution never came. Liam, however, began receiving friendly knocks on his door neighbors, apologizing, offering baked goods, or gently asking if maybe their kids could fish just once. He hadn't decided yet. All he knew was this: they fined him for using the lake like a criminal. Now they had to ask him for permission, and he didn't owe them a thing. The once idyllic community of Willow Creek Estates had changed. Not visually, its hedges were still pristine, and its sidewalks pressure-washed to perfection, but the tone of the neighborhood had shifted, and everyone knew why. The lake, once a prized community attraction, coffee in hand, calm, quiet. The same man they once ridiculed had become the owner of the very thing they tried to control. HOA morale had hit an all-time low. Residents were frustrated, not at Liam, but at the arrogance of the previous board, particularly Marla. The canceled events, the lost viewings from paddle boats, the silenced nature walks, it was too much. People began to speak up. Petitions circulated, and within weeks, Marla Griggs was forced to resign in her place.